Pre-game setup. Place cards within the borders of the giant record in the center board. Place vibes and record sales counters close to the board, or if you prefer, leave them in the game box. Designate a dealer and shuffle the pack of your artist cards. Hand a card to each player. Each player looks at the bottom of their card where they will find the level number of their artist or band. Level 1 means that a player will begin the game with 1 starting vibe. Level 2 means you start with 2 starting vibes, and so on and so forth. You are now ready to begin. Highest dice rolls first and play will commence at the white demo song square. Game pieces will travel in a clockwise direction. Upon throwing a 6, you have an opportunity to transfer your popularity vibes into record sales. The amount you are able to transfer will be determined by a further roll. So roll another 6 to exchange up to 6 vibe counters into record sales. But you will need to have a record in your possession in order to do so. Otherwise, when you throw a 6, you will only be allowed to have an extra go in your turn. So for example, you cannot throw 2 6s in a row to get 2 consecutive turns. It is strictly a one-time turn offer only. Unfortunately, you cannot exchange vibes and have an extra turn because you threw a 6. You have to make a decision: exchange vibes or have an extra turn. How to cut a record. How to cut a record. There are 2 ways to cut your own record. The first way is to land on the studio. Upon landing, the player lays down their game piece to signify they will not be leaving until their song is ready. So on each of their turns, they will not be rolling the dice, but instead will take a studio card in the hope that the card is relevant to his or her musical genre. A pop artist will wait for the studio engineers to produce a final mix of a pop song. A rock group will await a final mix of a rock song, and so on and so forth. If the card they take is not relevant to them, they simply discard to the back of the card stack. But if it is relevant to them, they now can leave the studio upon their next go and keep the card with them. It is at this point that they stand up their game piece in readiness of leaving the studio sofas on their next turn. The second way of cutting your own record is to land on the demo song square. Since we start the game on this square, it is obviously will not count until you have traveled right around the board. Move your game piece right around the board and then putting it down at the studio in an upright position. It is set down in an upright position to signify that you will have to move away from the studio on your next go. So if your studio card does not match your musical genre, off you go on your very next turn. If more than one player is in the studio and then someone draws a studio card, that card can be used by any of the other studio dwellers. But the drawer has the first rights to it. Then the order of play decides who would be next. You can only hold 2 records at any one time and cannot stay but leave the studio on your next turn. Once your studio card song matches your genre, you keep the card in your possession. This lets every player know that you are eligible to now collect record sales. Record sales. Record sales. There are 2 ways you can receive record sales. As discussed earlier, you can exchange your vibes for record sales if you have thrown a 6. To determine how many vibes you can exchange, simply throw again. The other way to get record sales is to land on the concert square with a $ ticket logo. On this square you can receive 2 record sales. To receive 2 record sales, simply exchange for 2 of your vibes. If you only have 1 vibe, then you can only exchange for 1 record sale. How to gig? How to gig? Tavern on the Green, Wine Bar, Nightclub, The Bullseye, White Rascal are all game board sites you can land on to book a gig. Each site has 3 blue game cards amongst the gigs card pile. To book a gig after landing at a site, simply hand over a vibe. You now take your corresponding 3 blue gig cards as proof of purchase. When another player lands at your gig, you can collect 2 vibes from the game box, whilst handing over 1 of your gig cards. Once all gig cards are handed in, your site is now available for others to hire. Game board cards. Game board cards. Landing on circumstance cards will see band members join or quit, vibes rise or fall for a variety of reasons. Landing on social media sites will see your accounts hit on by fans, with vibes rising as well as falling. If a circumstance card portrays a DJ playing a song and the song belongs to another player, then their vibes increase. When you take a circumstance or a social media card, all vibes increases are by 1, whilst all decreases are -1. You are now ready to play. Who will be top of the charts?